All right, we are back at it, and today I'm going to try and build up this Trek frame. So this is a Trek Marlin 4. This is kind of like one of the entry-level Trek bikes. It's a 29er mountain bike frame. It's a 3x, and it's got disc brakes. And I picked this up for like 35 bucks from a bike store. I think they had some like probably either stolen parts off of it or damaged parts. And if you're buying new parts to put onto this thing, it's probably not worth it because it's just kind of an entry-level Trek bike. But on the other side, it is a Trek, right? So it's still a decent bike. It's really dirty. So I don't know if you can see that, but there's a lot of dirt and stuff on it. Grease, look at that grease. So just a lot of just some scratches there. So I'm gonna have to clean this up. I did buy a brand new derailleur hanger for it. It did not have one. So that's a little bit of a bummer because derailleur hangers are like 40 bucks. So it's almost more than the price of the frame. It's got a crank on it. I don't know why someone took the bolts out of the crank, but that's okay. I've got a few. The crank is straight and it's a 3x. It came with what looks like could be a front derailleur. I don't know if it's going to work or not. It looks pretty rough, but I'll try and get it cleaned up. It also came with half of a back derailleur, which I think is just going to be garbage. And it also came with a shifter, a 7-speed shifter. It's not really going to work for us for this build because I want to build this as an 8-speed bike or 3x8. But that's okay. I'll maybe use that for something else. So it's a decent frame, and I think it's only worth building if you've got the parts. And OMG, I think I got the parts. So I've got this old Schwinn 29er. This is a what is this? A FireWire 4. It's a 1x8 driveline. It's a decent driveline. Acera, Shimano stuff. The bike does work well. It's totally functional. It's actually got some brand new Continental Double Fighter 2.0 tires on it. They hardly even haven't been used. It's got some new grips on it and some... I think the shifter on it is brand new too. Actually, yeah, I did do a new shifter on it. It's not a great shifter, but it's a brand new 8-speed Shimano shifter. I'm gonna come around this way. The headset's the same. The forks will work. So yeah, I think since this is a Schwinn and kind of not that special as a Schwinn, I think it would make sense to cannibalize this bike and put all the parts on the Trek. And then I'd have like a nice, cool, green colored, nice bright green colored Trek bike. And that'd be like so much cooler. I could feel great about myself knowing that I have a green Trek. Anyway, so my first step is I'm going to strip all the parts off of this Schwinn, put them in a milk crate or something, and then I'll start using those parts when I build the Trek. Okay, so that took like 10 seconds. No, longer than that, but not that much longer. So I stripped what I want off of this bike. I took the fork and the handlebars and the wheel off. I'm going to just take the headset off, just the bearings and stuff there. I took the chain and the rear wheel and the derailleur off. And I'm going to end up using this crank on another bike. So whatever, I'll leave it on there for now. And I'll use that seat and seat post on another bike as well. So this will get fully cannibalized. Ooh, sweet, a bottle cage. I'll be sure to use that too. Okay, so I'm going to put the Trek on the lift here and start building that up. All right, so I got that Schwinn stripped. I actually got kind of lucky. In my parts bin, I had a seat post, clamp, and a brand new seat post. I know it's the polished aluminum stuff, which is not in trend these days. Everything else is black on the bike. But whatever. It works. It's a good part. It's aluminum, it's brand new, so I'm just gonna leave it. I'm gonna strip off the rest of this other stuff, and I'm not gonna use most of it, so I don't have to be particularly gentle, so I can just get rid of this guy and take all this stuff off. Okay, the crank is off. Boy, that was really on there. I'm glad I took that off because I want to clean this. This is really gunky. Okay, so that actually cleaned it up quite a bit. You can see that there are a couple of scratches on the frame, but it's generally pretty good. That WD-40 I used basically because it's a degreaser, and I found that there was a lot of grease on this frame. It was just really slimy and stuff. But the WD-40 is really good for getting the grease off. Now, what I tried not to do is spray WD-40 inside that bottom bracket because I just don't want the WD to start to degrease the grease that's in there. The bottom bracket, it feels pretty tight. It feels all good actually. So I'm just gonna leave it and hope it's okay. And you know, I mean, honestly, if it is an issue, I'll put it all together, and if it is an issue, it's easy to come back and just swap that out with something else. But for now, it looks okay, feels okay. I'm gonna leave it. And what I will do though is I'll just, before I put these crank arms back on, I'm just gonna put a very small amount of grease on these ends, just so that if the cranks do have to come off, it'll come off a little bit easier than what I just did. And now I'll start assembly. Okay, I'm gonna put the fork in. And the fork that I'm using is a Suntour. I don't even know what it is. I think it's a cross-country XCM or something. And it's got a lockout in it. That's always nice. And I just, I mean, headsets are not terribly complicated, but in this case, I just took it apart and I'm putting it together in the same order that the Schwinn had it. And there's a top cap. This is a decent headset. It's a FSA headset. I don't really like the gap that's there, so I might try and poke around with that and see what's going on there. Okay, so I got the headset worked out, and you can see now that this top cap of the headset is nicely, you know, tight against the frame and the cups in there, and so it looks good. That's great. I'm going to put the handlebar on, and I think I'm going to need a spacer or two. I've just got some spacers lying around. I don't know how many I'm going to need here, but let's see. Oops. All right, so headset's on, handlebars are on. I have a feeling this is going to look so good with these wheels and tires. Oh, come on, old friend. People do this in all kinds of ways, like different orders. Sometimes I find it's easier to put all the parts on and the wheels last. But sometimes I just want to see the bike with wheels on it, you know what I'm saying? So I end up putting the wheels on first. And honestly, it's not impossible to build it with the wheels on. So there we go. That's a nice Continental. These tires are slightly smaller than what came on the bike. These are 2.0s, and what came stock on the bike is 2.2. So slightly smaller, but they're a nice tire. I love Continental tires. They're really nice tires. Just got a nice visit from the shop doggy. Hi, Billy girl. She's hanging because it's raining outside today. So she's going to hang in the shop with me. That's cool. All right, so I want to put the derailleur on. This is the derailleur that came off of the Schwinn. It's an old Acera. And it's not a bad derailleur. It totally works. It just looks a little too beat up. And as a replacement, I got this brand new Altus derailleur. It's really nice. It was like 30 bucks. I don't like buying new parts because I have so many parts kicking around. But I thought, just in the spirit of making this bike look fresh and a new lease on life, I'm going to put a brand new derailleur on it. So there's the derailleur that came with the bike. It's a tourney. It looks like it works. So if I pull on it, how do I do this? I haven't tightened it down too much, but anyway, you can see that it does actuate. I have not tightened it down because I haven't put the crank on yet. So I'll go kind of gentle on it. But I just sprayed it down with some WD-40. And then what I'll do later is come back and actually lube it up. Yeah, with an oil-based lube instead of a water-based lube like the WD is. But and hopefully this works. I have not tested this. I haven't had it on a bike at all, so I don't know. But I hope it, it does look okay. So I got my fingers crossed. Okay, I'm gonna put the cranks back on. Now I did clean them just to polish them up, and I want to put just the tiniest amount of grease on here so that it just prevents them from binding up later, just in case I have to remove them. And I'm going to stick a little bit of grease into that crank bolt hole. I don't want it coming loose on me while I'm riding, but I also want to be able to service this if I need to. Now, when I got this bike, it was missing a bolt for the crank arms. And I just found one in my pile of stuff here. So I do have a bolt, which I'm very excited about. Okay, I got some pedals. Whenever I do pedals, you always want to just grease a little bit the threads of those pedals, just so that they don't seize up on you. These pedals aren't anything special. They came off of another bike. actually that I will eventually build. So I am short a set of pedals, but I'll find some at some point. I'm sure I have some in the parts bins, but I just haven't really looked through them. So we are in business. I got my new derailleur on. Snazzy. Okay, so I think what's next is I got to find a seat. I want to I want to put a seat on. I want to take it off the stand and just make sure the wheels are sitting properly in the frame. And then I'll go and install some brakes, and I can wire up the shifters. Okay, so I got my caliper mounts here, and I don't have that many brakes around anymore. I've used them up on all my builds. So I ended up ordering some brakes, and I'm gonna just see how these go. These are just some cheapy brakes off of Amazon, but the reviews were really good. And they look very, very similar to an Avid BB7. They have this adjustment wheel on the back, or an Avid BB5. They actually feel really good. They have some nice thick pads in there. They came with the pads. They came with hangers, and they also came with 180 millimeter discs, which I don't have on here. Obviously, this is just 160, but just an interesting, bit of value there. And the whole thing was about $50 off of Amazon. Now, I know I could order some Avid BB5s, which are a great brake. BB7s as well. A great brake. And the cost of the brake itself is not that bad, to be honest. It's maybe, I think a BB5 is about $30, but then it's shipping, and then we're talking, $30 plus $30 is $60, and then I gotta get it shipped. That's gonna bring it to $70 or $80, and I know it's worth it. I know they're good brakes, but I'm just gonna see, if these work. I do have a source on some BB5s, so if these suck, then I'm just going to put on some BB5s. But yeah, they seem to be okay. I'm sure I got to break in the pads. All right, so I got the derailleur set up. I got all the cabling done. So it seems like it's going to work all right. It's nice because the derailleur's new and hanger's new and everything, but I just got it all nice, so it's working all smooth. Very happy. I got a little bit of a wobble in the wheel, so I'll take care of that. And I got the brakes hooked up as well, and they work really nice. They feel nice. They seem to lock the wheel really well. So I think those are going to work out great. I also wired up the front derailleur, so that's all working. You can see that that's moving with the shifter. And I wired up the front brake too. So the cockpit looks pretty good. Cables are tight. There won't be a lot of bounce or anything. And there's not a lot of clutter when you look over the handlebars. So that's good. So that bike is pretty much done. All right, so the Trek Marlin 4 is complete. Looks like I made it all with mostly scrap parts. Just a brand new derailleur and some Amazon brakes. And yeah, the rest came from that junk Schwinn bike that was lying around. I got lucky too because this Schwinn bike still has a crank on it, which I can use. And I'll use that on another bike that needs a crank right now. So that's good, so I can give all the parts a good home. And nothing goes to waste. But in the meantime, I got this great, nice Trek Marlin 4. Yeah, anyway. Cheers, everybody.